February 20th, 1902, world-famous landscape photographer Ansel Adams is born in San Francisco. But how did Adams's nose become misshapen? And how did a pandemic help set him on the path to becoming a photography legend? Also, how did his love of music result in him meeting his future wife? When Adams was 4 years old, the Great San Francisco earthquake struck. He survived the initial quake unscathed, but one of the aftershocks caused him to fall face first into a garden wall. Adams's nose was severely broken, and it was never properly reset. It was distinctively crooked for the rest of his life. It even affected his breathing, and apparently he was something of a mouth breather because of it. Adams was a hyperactive child. This caused him to be kicked out of several private schools, so his father pulled him from school at age 12 in favor of private tutors. At 14, Adams visited Yosemite National Park for the first time. It was at Yosemite that his father gave him his first camera. Adams then took a part-time job with a San Francisco photograph finisher and learned darkroom technique. The Spanish flu pandemic struck the world in 1918 when Adams was 16 years old. He contracted a severe case of the disease. It took several weeks for him to recuperate. It caused Adams to become obsessed with cleanliness, and he started washing his hands after just about every activity in an obsessive manner. His next trip to Yosemite helped to cure him of these compulsions. There was something for him that was healing in nature. Adams joined the Sierra Club and took a summer job as a janitor at the club's lodge in Yosemite from 1920 to 1923. He captured impressive landscape photographs in his off hours. Many of his most powerful photos throughout his career were taken in Yosemite. Adams's first love, however, was music, and when he first dropped out of school, he dedicated himself almost completely to the study of music, especially the piano. He became an accomplished pianist and hoped to make a career as a professional pianist. One difficulty he faced was the inability to practice during the summers at Yosemite. A park ranger introduced him to landscape painter Harry Best, who had a piano in his summer studio. Adams was able to practice there, and he also became acquainted with Best's daughter, Virginia. A few years later, Ansel Adams and Virginia Best married. Harry Best's Yosemite studio is, today, the Ansel Adams Gallery. By 1930, Adams decided to turn his attention from the piano and fully dedicate his life to photography. But he never lost his love for the piano, so much so that in 1945, at age 43, he decided to make recordings of his own interpretations of some of the works of Beethoven and Chopin. Now let's back up a bit. In 1927, at age 25, Adams released his first photographic portfolio. It was made up of 18 prints, including what is perhaps his most famous print, called Monolith, The Face of Half Dome. He earned $3,900 for the portfolio. In 1930, Adams met photographer Paul Strand, whose photos of the New Mexico desert greatly impressed and influenced him. The simplicity and realism of Strand's photographs stood out to Adams, and he worked to incorporate more of this into his own photos. Adams began writing articles for popular photography publications. These were mainly technical articles about the art of photography. By 1935, Adams had become renowned in the photographic community. London's Studio Publications commissioned him to author a guidebook for photographic technique. The book, Making a Photograph, was published in 1935. It was illustrated primarily with his own photos and was hugely successful. Adams was then able to use his prominent position in the field to increase public acceptance of photography as fine art. Throughout his career, much of his work focused on America's untouched wilderness areas, particularly in national parks and other protected areas of the American West. From the 1950s on, Adams's focus was less on taking new photographs and more on editing books of his work and his efforts as a conservationist. From 1934 to 1971, he served as director of the Sierra Club, which was founded in 1892 by influential conservationist John Muir, and which Adams had joined as a boy. Many of Adams's books later in life are more focused on conservationism, and he used his photographs in those books to promote the effort. In 1980, U.S. President Jimmy Carter awarded him the Medal of Freedom, which is the nation's highest civilian honor. Ansel Adams's popularity has only increased since his death in 1984 at age 82. He is widely considered both the most important landscape photographer of the 20th century and the most beloved photographer in United States history. Here are other events that happened today in history. In 1895, black leader and former slave Frederick Douglass dies in Washington, D.C. at age 77 or 78. In 1927, actor and activist Sidney Poitier, the first black winner of a Best Actor Oscar, is born in Miami. In 1962, aboard the spacecraft Friendship 7, John Glenn becomes the first American to orbit the Earth. In 1998, at age 15, American Tara Lipinski becomes the youngest Olympic figure skating gold medalist. In 2003, 100 are killed during a Great White concert when a pyrotechnics display sets the club ablaze. In 2014, Russia begins an invasion of Ukraine's Crimean Peninsula, annexing the territory a month later. In 2014, the U.S. vetoes a UN Security Council resolution demanding a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war. And now, it's time for our Today in History quiz. What was black activist Malcolm X's birth name? Malcolm Brown, Malcolm Ford, Malcolm Jenkins, or Malcolm Little? Liked learning about the great photographer Ansel Adams? Then you'll love this one about the father of photography, Louis Daguerre. Tap the screen to keep the story going on Today in History.